Hi guys, my name is Luka Fakiki. I'm from Hallam, Melbourne, Australia, and I train out of Scammer Fight Gym in Narre under a good friend of mine, Clay Amatangi. And I've been in the BJJ game for the last probably nine and a half years, and it has really changed my life. What we're trying to do here is help out our community, our youth, who's literally playing up, not at home. So we want to, who's not loved as well. So we're putting something together to bring all these youth that we know that who we see that have potential in life, and we're here to show that we do care about them, and there is a home for them. If they're feeling down, they'll go through hard times in life, and we're here. Doing jiu-jitsu helped me a lot in terms of, especially losing my father probably 5 years ago. I was really down. I went through depression. I just went downhill. Just ate myself out and became I drank so much heavily. So it was time to wake up, and obviously jiu-jitsu has helped me maintain that and got me back to where I'm at the moment, along with my faith. My parents are very well respected in the Cook Island community, as they were ministers for the Cook Island Christian Church. And going back, my dad was involved in a lot of youth work, and he helped out so many people during his time. And he was well respected through his church and also through his sports. So this is kind of something that we want to give back, and also share the jiu-jitsu to the youth who's going through tough times. We talk about mental health, and I'm a big believer in our churches, and this is the only way for me to give back is to return the favor, because they have so much love for my parents. All we're asking here, guys, is just a little donation to help us out going. The money goes towards our mats. That's our mats and a bit of little things like that to help the youth that's coming through the system. So anything that you can give, we'll take it and we'll appreciate it. Thank you.
As you heard the bro, get behind this cause. Incorporating jiu-jitsu with our faith and trying to help the greater community. So, see you on the mats. Oos.
Yes, good morning all. Good morning, good morning, good morning. All the way live from Coronaville, also known as Victoria, Australia. Sorry today, I don't have my camera working, but apologies for that. We want to welcome you to another podcast from Faith and Grace Ministries. We hope everybody's doing well out there. We're changing it up this week. Obviously, last week we had Dr. Bernie Powers come on, and we dealt with the problems with the claim Muslims are making with there is only one Quran. But this week we're going to be doing something different. We've got a couple special guests, and we're going to be talking about some social issues, and obviously Corona being the big talking point on the news of late, but at the same time too, we obviously with the George Floyd incident, the Black Lives Matter became big news as well, and started infiltrating. Obviously, the media was pushing that, and we've seen sports teams get behind this and all this sorts of things. So I thought, why not get some people that are interested in this thing and have a dialogue on this particular topic on Black Lives Matter. Is it a movement that is trying to help Black people, um, or and not just Black people, obviously people of other races or minority groups. But I'm going to introduce our guests. First, we got a brother coming all the way from California. His brother's Justin Wilson. Let me add him to the stream.
Hey,
how you going, sir?
Doing good for a guy.
G'day. All the have you ever done a podcast from Australia before, like with Australians?
No, never actually.
It's the first time for everything, and I appreciate you coming on. Maybe introduce yourself, give people your background and what you're about.
Well, I am Adventist Hermes. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, and I also have like a YouTube channel called Adventist Hermes, where I talk mainly about like social issues and political things from a Black Adventist conservative point of view, which is very rare from my neck of the woods ideologically. So, that's me, and I would consider myself a preacher and a thinker and a filmmaker. So that's me.
Awesome, and we do appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts on this particular topic today. Also, I have another guest joining us from Byron Bay, but he's really from Melbourne. He's been able to escape the zombie apocalypse. He's up in New South Wales. Here's Jason Locke. Let me add him to the stream. Jason, can you hear me?
How are we? Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Oh yeah, well, and for people that know, me and Jason have been lifelong friends. This brother is pretty active when it comes to the Black Lives Matter rallies. He organizes security, things of that nature. But yeah, you know what? Let me talk for you. You can talk and introduce yourself and things of that nature.
Well, my name is Jason Olatunji Locke. I'm Australian by nationality. I am of African by the Caribbean and of European descent. I'm equally proud of both sides of my heritage, and I acknowledge my privilege as a biracial person to be a bridger between worlds. I'm also a small to medium business owner. I'm also in my work for security. As a non-Indigenous person of this land, I acknowledge the traditional owners, past and present, and their sovereignty that was never ceded. With respect to kind of the nature of the Christian nature of this show, spiritually, I don't know what the term is for it, but I'm not an atheist. I believe and have my own understanding and connection with God. I have some strong concerns about organized religion, but yeah, I believe in to each their own, and I believe that there's answers to be found in discussion with all peoples.
I appreciate that, Jason. And it's how this came about. Me and him we have a WhatsApp group chat of some of us old. We call it the old boys chat. From back in the days, and when this topic started coming up, Jason's very passionate about it, and I was giving, because I'm a conservative. I would consider myself to be a conservative Christian. And just the arguments going back and forth, and Jason's like, well, let's tee up a debate on the podcast, so on and so forth. So I'm glad we've been able to organize something today, and I'm looking forward to hearing from.
So essentially, it's brought reinforcements.
No.
Can you speak to your mic a little closer? Because sometimes I can't hear you.
Is that me?
No, to Jay Lark or Jason, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. You got me?
Yeah, I think so.
Better?
Yeah, just make it a little bit more better. Or just project your voice a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just going to move it across. Yeah, let's go.
But yeah, as if anybody saw the flyer, and I want to start this discussion off with systematic racism. You know what I mean? Because I think this is where the Black Lives Matter movement is basing their argument off. They claiming that there is systematic racism in our, in Western society today. So, Jason, obviously, I think you think there is. So, how about we open the floor with your point of view and why you think that there is?
Well, to unpack that, I kind of need to understand what are your guys' definition of systemic racism? Because to me, the systemic racism manifests itself in many different ways. So there's a lot to unpack. So we need to figure out exactly what we're addressing.
Well, go by your definition.
Well,
Go by your definition.
My definition.
Yeah.
I think there's way too much to unpack with that. Like we can be talking about criminal justice, we can be talking about employment, we can be talking about housing, we can be talking about healthcare, political power, education. Obviously, the George Floyd case has been the catalyst that has kind of like sprung up a lot. Like it sparked a lot of the discontent with what's been happening in the U.S. and also in also 18 other countries, including Australia. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, let me just give my simple definition. Systemic racism is basically racism that's in the system itself, like written in the laws and the codes and things of that sort that can and somehow only affect one group of people, or I guess a multiple group of people based on their race or I guess their culture.
Yeah, and that's it's basically kind of racism that's perpetuated or continues through a system. So that's a very simple definition.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it was a lot easier to kind of diagnose the problem when you had things like Jim Crow and slavery and whatnot, because you had very definite legislation that you were trying to dismantle at the time. These days, I think you really have to kind of look at data and statistics and whatnot. But yeah, it depends. Where would you like to begin?
Well, okay. Well, let me just make the statement that I don't believe that there is any systemic racism, or at least not much of it that is worth like fighting over or creating like I guess a destruction of the system. And really, what's going on is the system is attacking certain, I guess, criminality or certain behaviors that one group or many groups of people just happen to have. Or, so for example, if someone says, hey, we're going to make, I guess, marijuana illegal, then, I mean, that applies to both whites and blacks. Now, the thing is that if the law ends up like locking up more blacks, then it's not that the law is messed up. It's the fact that it's blacks that's actually breaking the law. And it just happened that the culture seems to be in the way or in the path of that law. So that's something that can change from, I guess, the end of the black community. But that's just an example.
Okay. Well, just looking at data from the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics and as well as the Australian Bureau of Statistics, it says here that the U.S. has the highest rate of imprisonment in number and by percentage of population. In the U.S., the African American people are the most incarcerated by percentage of their population. That's 2,207 per every 100,000. And here in Australia, Indigenous Australians are the most incarcerated by percentage of their population, just 2,346 per 100,000.
Okay. Well, there's reasons for that.
Yeah. Unpack it.
Well, I mean, at least for the black community here in the United States, one thing that we often do is glorify criminality in our music. And it shows up into our community, how we dress like thugs, we talk like thugs, we act like thugs by actually doing the crime. And then, in doing that, like, I guess, having this crime, infested like neighborhood, we protect it. We have this no snitch code in our community. So when this is happening, you're going to have more, I guess, you're just going to rub shoulders, or you're going to have more friction with the law just by nature. So of course, that is going to bring more incarceration in the Black community if we celebrate this kind of criminal lifestyle.
Okay. So you narrow it down to music and to how people dress.
No, just that's just a couple of examples that I mentioned, but I said music, and then also the fact that we encourage it beyond music. We protect it as well.
Okay. What are some of the other factors?
Well, yeah, the other factors is, yeah, pretty much those. That's the main factor, actually. It's I can't even say that it's poverty, because there are many poor, I guess, people out there that do not commit crime.
Okay. But do you see a correlation between poverty and crime at all?
No, not really. I see a correlation between culture and crime. Yeah, you could, if you take culture and put it anywhere, like if you give it to rich people, that culture may make that those rich people either commit more crime or less crime. That's why you find a lot of rappers who are rich, making millions, still shooting each other.
Okay. So when you talk about crime, you're just referring to violent crime, is that correct?
Well, homicides. Yeah, hold on, Jake. Your mic is super low, or you're not talking close to it.
Yeah. How's that?
Even louder. Or project your voice or something. Like you're outside.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So your answer is music and the way people dress.
Well, not just music,
and poverty doesn't really play too much a part in it.
Yeah, it's not too much. It doesn't play too much a part of it. It's the culture. So let me just put it this way: the culture. So that includes music, movies, the fact that we teach our young people to act like this. We say, you know, if you're educated or you talk educated, then you're sounding white. We encourage it. We also fatherless homes. There aren't that many fathers in the home, so that creates this unstable community, because if you don't have a family structure, then a community structure falls right after that.
Okay. What do you define as a family structure?
Okay, mother, father together in the same house with their kids, and yeah, that's pretty much the nuclear family.
Yeah, just so we get into the crux of it, you're saying strictly mother, father?
Yeah, mother, father. I definitely don't believe in mother, mother, and it's less ideal to have a single parent.
Okay. All right. Well, we won't go straight into that. I'll stick to this topic for now, but we can get to that later. But yeah, just looking at some studies that have been going over, studies seem to indicate that 61 to 80% of Black overrepresentation in prisons can be explained by higher Black crime rates, with the unexplained portion largely attributed to racial bias. The factors which lead to disproportionate criminality amongst Black Americans are also in large part a product of racial bias. Underfunded public programs, redlining, generational poverty. Redlining means just not able to get loans and whatnot. Generational poverty, bad schooling, and a myriad of other factors which influence criminality can also be traced to racial bias. Do you want to go straight into those stats, or do you want me to keep reeling off the different points that are like we can go? I can expand on those individually, or I can keep going through the list.
You can no, actually, just let's stop right there and let's unpack each of those.
Sure.
So okay, so here's one, like redlining.
Yep.
Even like, let's say we talk about a community, a Black community that's I guess they're not giving enough funds to. That is still not an excuse for all the crime that's in our community, or the white flight, as they would say, because part of the issue is that.
What was white flight?
White flight is when people who have like who's a higher class, or at least as most people assume is white, they leave a black community, or they leave a community when they start seeing black people come. That's white flight.
Yeah, yeah.
So then that creates.
And
So
where are the
sometimes,
examples of that?
sorry.
Where are the examples of like where for example is white flight taking place, or are you saying that doesn't?
Well, it happens all the time. Like, so for example, like in New York, there's areas that used to be mostly white. I mean, most cities, you have a neighborhood that shifts in culture and race, where at one point it was, let's say, mostly white, and then black people moved in, and then you see no white people anymore, or you see far less white people. Or some place, like for example, here in Mexico, I was about to say Mexico, here in California, it's not necessarily white flight. It seems to be black flight, because Mexicans are coming into Compton, and you hardly find any black people there. It just, people leave because either they don't feel comfortable in the neighborhood, because the culture has changed, and they just don't fit in anymore. So they don't speak Spanish, with all the new Mexicans there. They just feel like, well, let me just move on to somewhere else. So some people will say, well, then that's creating, I guess, underprivileged communities because white people leave. But that's that's not fair. We should be able to control our own community and keep it like pristine, and have it in such a way that people will want to move into our neighborhood instead of leaving.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So go ahead, continue on with generational poverty.
Oh, okay. Generational poverty. I would say that's really that's our choices. Really, it boils down to that. Because we're not teaching each other as a people, to buy property like houses and so on, and then buy insurance and things, life insurance. We're not making the right habits that the white community has done, and they are.
Would you say that the white community had a head start with that?
Well, sure, but even that doesn't even matter, because, for example, there's like a bunch of Nigerians who move from Nigeria, of course, come to the United States, and they are just making millions. They are the privileged class, same skin colors, same look and everything, but they somehow don't get affected by what most black people claim to have here. So it's not necessarily a generation.
Are they coming with money though?
No,
they're not coming with money. They're just starting from scratch.
Yeah. I mean, even if you came here with money, that still doesn't actually mean that you have generational wealth, considering that you come to the United States, you still have to buy your own things, go to a college, somehow get in debt. I mean, for the most part, many of these Nigerians, they come, they get a doctor position. Actually, culturally, they seem to go to the medical field, and they get rich that way, because that's what they're choosing to do. They don't choose to be a rapper. They don't choose to do other things like play basketball and things like that sort, even though that can make people rich as well. But they choose the guarantee route to get rich. So that's just.
How long have they been coming over for?
Well, I don't know. I can't say. I don't have that stat.
I mean, like specific. Like, are you talking about like there's gonna been a wave like recently, or are you saying that like they've been like this is what they've been doing ever since they've been arriving in America?
I would say there's been a wave. At least what I've been, hearing. There seemed to be a wave, and at least like in colleges, or like my black friends who are in the I guess the medical field, they will talk about the black people that are actually high up there, and they will say, yeah, all of them are like Nigerians or something. So it
Well,
seems.
Nigeria is quite a prosperous country. So if you're coming across and you're coming across as a student there, like there's quite a bit of a disparity of of the kind of level of privilege that you have, like the kind of advantage that you have coming over. So you got
Well,
so to compare it with like obviously there's a plethora of different like kind of subcategories of African Americans, like the way well you have the same kind of mixes as what my people do in the Caribbean. Like they're not, they don't come from any one specific country. Like you're mixed, and also like there's obviously a big kind of chasm in knowing the history of your peoples there as well. But in saying that, do you know much about your own ancestry?
I just know, well, my family's from Costa Rica, and from Costa Rica, they're from Jamaica, and I guess
Cool.
from there on, we can just say they're from Africa.
Cool. And so, like, how
And
many
if I can,
generations back in the...
hello.
Yeah, go, George.
No, I was just going to add that Nigerian example that Justin brought up. I actually was an eyewitness to a brother named Azuka. And if Azuka's listening, God bless you, Azuka. He came here, not much money. What do you call it? He studied in the field of biochemist. You know, he's a biochemist. You know, living from house to house, just working hard. Now he got his obviously his he graduated, and now he's working in the field. So that's just an example of like he looks like Justin here. You know what I mean? Came to this country, Nigerian, and he was able to, you know, get where he wanted to because I'll put it down to the culture that he's choosing to pursue for himself and his family, I guess. So I just wanted to add, you know, a witness testimony to that because I actually witnessed it, and the dude was from Nigeria. So sorry, you guys continue.
Yeah, cool. So yeah. So how many generations back does your family go in America?
I just one. My mom. My mom is she was the first family member to be here.
Okay. So would you say there's a bit of a detachment between your family's experience and the overall kind of African American experience? Like they're obviously you're
To a degree, actually, and I think it was helpful because my mom, she never talked about racism to me. I lived in Brownsville, Brooklyn, New York. I seen all this stuff. I hear people talk about racism. We had Black History Month every month of the year in my school, but like I actually saw. I could be honest with my own eyes. I saw us causing the problems that, you know, we claim that the white people were committing against us. We were shooting each other. I would hear gunshots every so often, and never did I think it was a white guy. Never. But if someone
sorry,
died,
whereabouts was this?
in New York City, in Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah.
So it's known to be like a notorious place in the hood.
Okay. But just getting back to what I was saying, would you say that your experiences would be very similar to like the rest of African Americans? Like, do you define yourself as an African American?
Yeah.
Yeah, and would you say that your experience would be identical or very, very similar to everyone else's?
Well, no, you can't ever say.
Or do you think that there might be a disconnect?
No, I don't think. Okay, I would not say absolutely disconnected, because I mean everyone is somewhat disconnected to some degree because you're not a carbon copy of anybody. But like I lived in the same neighborhood, did not think of myself as anything different, and people treat me like how they would treat another Black person, except I acted, you know, a little different from everybody else.
Okay, so what experiences have you had of racism in your lifetime?
Okay, well, my first experience of racism that I saw it wasn't against me, but I saw it, you know, in elementary school. I saw black friends, yeah, just pretty much taunting this girl who had a birthmark. You know, she was like really big, like half of her face, and they just kept calling her Blackie, 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 and I was like, what? How could you guys do that? We just had a Black History Month, and we're calling her Blackie. That's racist. And you know, that was my first time like ever like pointing out racism in my own people. My other experience of racism was in Costa Rica. I lived in Costa Rica for a year. I was shocked by the amount of racism that I received. And I would tell people about it, but people didn't, I mean, people didn't believe me. My mom didn't believe me. They didn't understand like what I was seeing.
And what kind of demographic of people were you experiencing that from?
That was from the Hispanic community. They're more like Spaniard looking, where I guess they're like the blue-eyed, you know, blonde hair kind of Spanish, and even also I would say the more brown skin. And I saw that they were racist towards those who were from Nicaragua. You know, they just automatically assumed that they were, I guess, troublemakers. And they would treat me like I was less educated, like I was stupid. I mean, part of that was because I was trying to learn Spanish. So of course I sound stupid, but without even talking, they would assume that of me. My English teacher, who was black, would yell at me and treat me like I was stubborn, while she would treat all the rest of let me just call it for simplicity, white students. She would treat them with like grace and calmness, but towards me, she would treat me like I was some stubborn kid. Everyone noticed that.
What would you narrow that down to? Like, would you call that indoctrination? Like, what do you think of the kind of cultural implications of that were?
Well, I would say that was basically common. Yeah, I would say that's common, like racism, or common. Yeah, it's pretty much common racism. In other words, it's a racism that's shared both by black and white people, where you treat black people the way white people treat black people, like stupid.
Okay, so you mean black people looking like treating other black people as a quote unquote racist white person would treat a black person, is what you're saying?
Yeah, like
it's the same method of thinking.
Yeah, you have low expectations for a black person.
Okay, and that's in the school system, and that was a teacher.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame the school system. I'll blame the teacher, because I saw the teacher doing that.
Okay, but the teacher is part of the system, though, is it? Would you say that was the only black teacher we thought like that?
Well, no. I mean, she was part of the system, but I can't say that she was making laws and rules for the system. If she did that outside of school, I mean,
the education system is what I'm talking. I'm not talking about laws. I'm talking about the education system.
Well, I mean, the education system has its own laws for its system, but no, I still wouldn't blame the system, because, I mean, you have bad apples in the system. That's why they fire people.
Okay, but you're saying that like you recognize that kind of attitude like throughout, like you noticed it when like wherever you were growing up there.
Well, yeah, I noticed that from the teacher. Yeah, I didn't connect it to the education system. I connected it to her. Just that's how she is.
Okay, so you narrow it down to individual behaviors. You don't think there was like a culture of that. Like you don't think there was like some kind of like underlying factor that bred that kind of thinking.
Yeah, I believe it was
not specifically education system, but like the culturally. Like as you were referring to the lighter caste people, the more blue-eyed people. Do you think that they were kind of, in a way, they were celebrated as the more kind of the higher in social status?
Well, yeah, yeah, sure, and that was something that I guess both people accepted, and they treated each other like they treated me as though I was stupid. And here in America, I see it in different ways.
That you okay? That to you wouldn't be an example of systemic racism?
No, I see that as like cultural racism. Like to me, I see that often in liberal ideology, which is part of the culture. It's this idea that Black people need to be given like softball answers or questions. That you have to treat them not on the same standard, or put them on par with white people. You have to treat them You have to treat them with more caution and care, because they're not as strong as white people. That's what I see as a culture, not as a system. Now, actually, we do have systemic racism. I take that back. In the laws of affirmative action, where you don't have to like pass a class or have certain grades to get into a college. Like they judge you on a curve.
Okay. So in essence, do you believe, like, if you don't believe in systemic racism, do you believe that white supremacy exists?
In a sense, but not like in the sense that a lot of these guys make it. I think it often exists by the people that who want to fight it the most. They actually treat white people as supreme when they beg them to do things for them.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to expand on that? Just what you actually believe white supremacy to be?
Well, okay, the definition of white supremacy is, it's a belief that white people are supreme, mostly in, I guess, the intellectual status, or also as far as like governance. And, it doesn't necessarily mean a white person is leading out. It just means that, the white person is seen as the more evolved, or the best, I guess, person to lead the world. So a lot of people, I would say.
And is that what you believe?
No, I don't believe that. I believe we're all equal. We all have the same kind of potential. It's just that we're not all using the same potential, and we're not applying ourselves the same way. So, of course, there's going to be disparities, differences in different races and cultures, because we're not exercising the same kind of work ethic and mindset.
Mm-hmm. And would you say that the playing field is completely level?
Opportunity wise, yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to add, if I could add something real quick. I don't know if you guys can see your screen. I'm about to share something, and I'd like to get your fellas' opinion on this. You guys can see that?
Yes.
Let me read it. And this is from Nefertiti. I actually did a show with her a few weeks. We've done a couple shows together. And I got love for the sister. I think she does good things. But I was a little bit concerned. Obviously, we all have entitled to freedom of speech. But if you read that, she's calling for this person to be fired. Now, have you guys read this post? What the principal was saying?
No, I haven't.
I can read the top part. I can't.
You can't see it?
Bottom. Actually, yeah.
Okay, I could read some of it. It says, "What privilege? Privilege is wearing $200 sneakers when you've never had a job. Privilege is wearing $300 Beats headphones while living in public assistance. Privilege is having a smartphone with a data plan which you receive no bill for. Privilege is living in public subsidized housing where you don't have a water bill. We're rising property taxes and rent and energy costs have absolutely no effect on the amount of food you can put on your table. Privilege is the ability to go march against and protest against anything that triggers you without worrying about calling out of work and the consequences that accompany such behavior. Privilege is having as many children as you want, regardless of your employment status. And I think that's as far as I can see.
Yeah, I think that's all I could see. Um, now, uh, I'd like to hear like if you read the post, the person that put this up was calling for this principal or was assistant principal to be for her job to be terminated. Would you agree with that? This is obviously a Black Lives Matter activist was calling for this teacher to be her employment to be terminated immediately.
Well,
What
you
are
know,
your
I
thoughts
don't
on?
agree. You know, I don't believe she should be fired. But what do you think, Jay?
I don't. I think I think that for prints out in public, but I think it should definitely be scrutinized, and I think it should be unpacked. And yeah, I wouldn't call for the immediate firing, but I'd say definitely take look at through the microscope.
What was wrong with what she said?
I didn't say anything was wrong with it. I said that it was probably inappropriate for a principal to put out in a public forum if you have it's obviously it's dog whistling towards a certain demographic.
What about my
So
demographic?
it's something that you. Sorry.
Well, what about my demographic? Why couldn't she be whistling to me?
As a in what regard do you what do you regard as your demographic?
Well, a black conservative, someone who actually agrees with her thinking.
Yeah, well, that's a fair point, but it's also yeah, she's talking about a specific issue. Like she's obviously dog whistling the Black Lives Matter movement. Yeah, absolutely, you can agree with her as well. But there's a lot of people on the other side of the fence as well. So as I said, it's not something that I think warrants immediate dismissal, but it definitely does requires analyze.
Yeah, but what she said was just, I mean, loud and clear to me. Like it actually made my argument 10 times, easier to explain because I like we as black people, we have so much privilege when it comes to the welfare system, when it comes to depending on like I guess so many like job opportunities because we're black. We could actually get jobs because they make quotas where people will have to hire like certain amount of black people, and it does work in our favor. We're so like we're so enamored by this supposed white privilege that we're blind to our own privilege. We're looking so closely into theirs that we ignores ours. And like the idea, like
So what privilege did what? Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say
What privilege does? Yeah. Sorry, I think we got a bit of delay. Sorry, keep going.
Okay. So for example, a privilege that she did mention, buying $200 worth of sneakers. Now that's a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Having $200 to just waste it on sneakers, just to show off to some kids that may jump you one day. I mean, really, that could have went to something else like books. That could have went to something else such as like a computer, a laptop, or anything that could have actually got you further in life instead of sneakers. But we don't see that as privilege. We look at white people do that. White people will take that money and invest in something else like college or maybe housing or something like that. And then we look at them like, oh, see, that's white privilege for you. We had privilege, but we just blew it on just stupid things.
Yeah, but you know what's the kind of clincher of this for me is that when I initially said that obviously she's talking about a demographic, and then you said that why couldn't she be talking about my demographic? You have assumed that she was talking about black people just off what she had said there. I didn't say black people to begin with, but you went there, and then you've unpacked it. You've unpacked the whole black and white argument now. So that is why I believe that what she said was inappropriate, because she's trying to tackle a racial issue from her own platform. as a principle. So she is demonstrating her bias, and as I said, she was dog whistling the answer, and you completely got that dog whistle for you to go down that path.
No, she's not hiding the fact that she's speaking towards the black community. I don't see that. Like she's not trying to talk secretly.
Let's pull that. Let's pull it up.
Yeah, she's not talking secretly. She like it's clear. People who buy
Did
$200
she mention
worth of
black in
sneakers,
that?
like she's not trying to hide that.
Did she say black in there?
No, she didn't have
Did she
to.
say black in the?
No.
No. But what if she did? Well, she knew what she was doing, and that's my issue with it.
Of course she knows what she's doing. I know what she's doing. We all know what she's doing. Like there's no hiding here.
Exactly. So we know what she's doing. So that's why I said, okay, she hasn't gone and said it straight out specifically to make it a specifically racial issue, but it's that kind of language and that kind of narratives that permeates like the alt-right media and it's like people that learn like specific like strategic ways of using language that dog whistle and it creates this kind of culture where that creates that more of a divide between people. And you perfectly understood that language because you're kind of in that conservative field. So straight off the bat, you know where her politics lie as well.
But she wasn't hiding who she was talking towards. If we're talking about if the context is Black Lives Matter, and the people
why didn't she say black then? Why didn't she say Black Lives Matter then?
Because
black.
It was clear. She doesn't have to. It's like she's not trying to follow the rules of
exactly
what she has to say to not seem like she's hiding. Like when I talk about
because she said black straight up, she would get fired, wouldn't she? And that's what people are calling for. Then that's obviously the purpose.
Do you want her to say black or do you not want her to say black?
Hey, say again? Oh, sorry, you're breaking up a bit.
Do you want her to say black, to specifically point out the black community and say, black people, this is the privilege you have? Or you just want her to just say, leave it open?
I'd like racists just to be straight up front. Like this is one thing that me and you would do to agree on, because I watched one of your videos where you have some very strong critiques of the Democratic Party. I have the same critiques. They engage in that, and also conservatives engage in that as well. So like all it takes is like if all that takes is just if they're gonna go run with if she as a principal of a school who uses that kind of language and only certain people, like actually everyone, as you said, everyone knows what she was talking about. If she had said black straight up, she would have been fired. And that's the thing. But she knows what she's doing, so she's left black out of it. But you know what she's talking about, and that's what people take. I'm only just coming across this issue, but I can tell you that's exactly what that Black Lives Matter girl would have been talking about.
Okay, well, I mean, it just seems clear. The obvious case is that she's speaking towards those who talk about privilege, and that could be anybody, but specifically, it's coming from black people.
It could have been, but you took it as a black thing straight away before I did.
Well, because it's obvious that she's talking about that, and
exactly,
there's no one hiding that.
Exactly. But she did hide it by not saying black. Or she didn't say she did by not talking about the Black Lives Matter. Without talking about black people. She was talking about those privileges. And I said,
okay,
so said what demographic could it affect in straight away.
Okay, so then let me ask you this: when she talks about buying $200 worth of sneakers, how do you know who she was talking about? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, did you hear me?
Yo, sorry. Repeat.
When she
said, the question, you went completely blank for a couple of seconds.
When she said, privilege is buying $200 worth of sneakers, and then also, I guess probably just ignoring the rest of the privileges that you do have. How did you know that she was talking about the black community?
This is. You're sounding like a robot now. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not sure if that's just you. It's probably just your end, or if you're.
Yeah, it'll be his internet. It'll be his internet. Where he's at.
Saying there's a rare bug in Safari that can cause this. Try clicking this button to fix it. Doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe you might have to come in and out, or get close to the modem or something.
Ivan, we've got another guy joining us. Ivan, he's a communist as well. I'm joking, Ivan.
Hey,
You're
George,
not
can
a
I call?
communist.
Can I call on web?
I am a communist now. Okay, just so you know.
Oh, you are a communist. There you go.
I'm all down for it now.
What were you saying, Jason? You gotta log in and log out.
George, can I call you?
Yeah. Yeah.
George, can I
Come
continue this
log
on
out
WhatsApp?
on WhatsApp. I don't know what just happened. Ivan, the communist. Maybe while Jason's fixing his technical issues, maybe you can have a dialogue. Ivan is also he's a work colleague of mine, and he's a adamant supporter of Black Lives Matter. Maybe you can dialogue with Justin here for a little bit till Jason returns.
Yeah, sure. I have one. You said that there is a level playing field within the US between like whites and blacks. How would you explain the difference within this sort of like the funding and education between those two communities?
I would say that the funding would have to do with, I guess, the people that live in that neighborhood. Often, I would say that the people that ask for like grants and put all the work into getting it would be more so like white people who actually put more effort into it. And the Black community, they either lobby less and they just shout more, but lobby less. And also, when it comes to like how we take care of our schools and our communities, we break them down real quick. I mean, as soon as you put up an establishment, you find graffiti on the wall. There has to be so much money put into taking care of the infrastructure. We don't treat it like it's ours. We treat it like it's theirs. And then we kind of, get mad at why our neighborhood looks so bad. And, when you look at it, you think, man, why our books look so messed up? All the pages are torn out. The covers are missing. And it's really because we don't cherish what we have. We treat it like it's somebody else's, or we treat everything like it's an apartment. If you don't own the house, then you kind of like break in, you kind of break it down. You don't really care. So, of course, we think the problem is funding, when really it's not. Because every time we put funding into our community, it just goes into the wind because we destroy our infrastructure again.
But there's still so much more underfunded. Like, they're not evenly funded, so therefore it's not a level playing field.
Not evenly funded. Okay, I would have to look at the numbers to actually verify or even know what we're talking about.
Because they're funded via the tax bracket of that community. So if the people in your community are paying less tax because they are earning less, therefore they get less funding than other communities.
Okay, well, I would have to know for sure. I have to look at things from a case by case, situation, because different states, different, I guess, counties, they would have to they have different tax brackets because of the needs of that neighborhood. And
of course.
Yeah, so sometimes comparing, oranges and apples confuses, what we're talking about.
No, but it's not oranges and apples. They are like funded via the tax base of the communities that they come from.
Ivan,
Yeah.
was that a democratic? What do you call it, policy, or was that a Republican policy?
No, I'm not actually too sure about that. Yeah, I'm not too sure whether it was Republican or Democratic. The point is that I think it's unfair.
Well, no. Okay, so for example, if you have a school that is like, I don't know, 500, has like 5,000 students in it, of course that should get more taxes or tax money. If you have a school that is in, I don't know, in a neighborhood that requires the roads to be built and everything to be taken care of so that it can keep the businesses going, because they have like some prestigious, landmarks. They have some prestigious businesses and everything there. Then it seemed like, yeah, it makes sense to like make sure that the building structure, the schooling and everything, like keep up to standard. So I can understand why some certain areas would actually get more tax revenue than others.
Because they need it.
Well, yeah, because they need it, and in some places don't actually need it as much.
So what you're saying is that we should be pumping more money to those impoverished areas
Well,
via tax?
sure. I don't think, not necessarily. Sometimes poor areas are not poor because they don't have money. They're poor because of the crime, and we need to actually put more, I guess, policing, or we need to actually do something with the culture in that neighborhood. So it's really not about it being poor.
So you don't think poverty is like proportional or correlational to crime?
No, not necessarily. It's culture. It's the poor mind, not the poor situation.
No. Okay. All right then. But there have been multiple studies that show that that the poorer, I mean, it's just common sense. The poorer you are, the more crime that would happen, right? If you just lived in any poor society, it doesn't matter whether it's demographic, like black or not. If you're living in a poor area, there's going to be more crime. That's just common sense.
No,
It depends.
yeah, sometimes it's the poor mind that makes them poor. So if you can give a person like no excuse to commit crime, but if they think that they're entitled to people things, then they will steal, they will kill, and then they would actually destroy. And that will make their environment. So if they keep doing that, end up in jail, lose their jobs, then they end up in a neighborhood that is just, very poor. It's really because they put themselves there. Poor mind lead them to a poor situation.
Okay, but yeah, what caused the poor mind, right?
Well, people choices. People actually made themselves that way many times.
Okay, I'll point you to a study though. Like, okay, so places with high income inequality in particular have higher incidences of crime, overwhelmingly so. In fact, a 2002 study by the World Bank found that crime rates and inequality are positively correlated, and an increase in income inequality has the effect of intensely increasing these crime rates.
Okay.
Yeah, Ivan, have you Jordan Peterson? You've heard of him? He did a study on it's called relative poverty, because where these poor people are, they're living in the same areas as where rich people are. You know what I mean? They're like right across the street. Whereas if you have actual communities where everybody's just the same, there's actually there's no crime. You know what I mean? Because everybody's on the same playing field.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
It's due to relative poverty, not poverty per se. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, but that's exactly what I'm saying. You see, when everyone's on that level playing field in terms of income, there's less crime. It's just when they're separated between low income and high income, that proves the point.
Yeah, but why is the person having low income?
Because of bad education. Well, there's multiple factors, but one of those things is education. Right? Could we assume that education's a good proportionate to getting a higher income?
Yeah, So
so if their schools are underfunded.
Okay. So here's the thing. I think everyone has access to education, like real access. Everyone has the world in their fingertips.
No, they don't. That's just a flat out lie.
Okay, so black people in general don't have cell phones with Wi-Fi?
No, I'm not saying I have a cell phone, right? But whether I have a good school or not doesn't show that I'm going to get a good education, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. So people who go through homeschool They don't go to the same school or education. They don't need, you know, all these. I guess they don't need a bunch of money thrown at them. They just need a good parent to lead them to study this, read that book, or they themselves could be self motivated. There's
Okay, so that yeah, there's a good point there. Parents, right? So what if your parents say previously didn't have a good education and previously didn't have a good education? Therefore, that's going to flow down.
Not exactly. See, that's the thing. My mom, for example, she didn't know how to read like that well. She didn't. I didn't know how to read at fourth grade. They told my mom, look, this kid is not doing. He's not reading. He's not doing good at his reading level for this grade. So guess what she did? She sat me down and just had me read. She didn't know how to read that well, but I was still learning, and I didn't know how much she knew how to read, but I was still doing pretty good. I actually improved.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I improved enough to actually, you know, get on, I guess, grade level because
Yeah,
my mom took the time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that's really good that she did that, but that's not the reality for majority of people.
So how? Okay,
It's
but
just anecdotal evidence there.
well, of course, every evidence is going to be anecdotal if you separate each of them. Yeah,
No, it's not.
You just have to combine them together. So, for example,
Yeah,
like,
okay, fair.
so you have like Ben Carson, same situation. You know, his mom didn't know how to read at all. Didn't know how to read at all. But she pretended that she knew how to read. She forced him to read, and he eventually became, you know, I guess the renowned neuro a doctor or a scientist. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's sometimes it boils down to choice and work ethic.
I mean, it does. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, it does boil down to choice, right? But the environment plays much more of a factor.
It does.
In that.
I'm not gonna lie. It does. But you know, you could complain about the wind and the rain, or you could just get an umbrella. Those who don't get an umbrella, it's like, okay, you saw.
Okay, yeah.
You
In that analogy, I'd go, yeah, sure, you get an umbrella. But then what if you try to get an umbrella, which is your education, right? And then this person from a higher income like place has a nice, fully functioning umbrella. But you from a poor income with the education, you've got this umbrella, you tried to get it, but your umbrella has massive holes in it.
Okay, well then, okay, don't be envious of what the other guy has.
No, I'm not saying be envious. I'm just saying, like, I tried to get an umbrella. My umbrella's got a massive hole.
Okay, well then make another one.
But yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we got to get down to the solution. And making another one is changing at least the fund. One of the things is changing the differences in funding in schools to make the umbrellas the same. And that's a systematic change that needs to be happening.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that could possibly help in some way, but for the most part, the biggest hole in the umbrella, if I'm going to use that example, is the fact that we as a community, we do not cherish what we have. We don't like appreciate it. So even if they gave us $1 million or $1 billion to our schools, like we're going to not going to do our homework. We're not going to actually like take advantage of all the programs. We're probably going to like graffiti and do all kinds of vandalism on the school. There's so many things that we can change from our end, so that the money that's given to us would actually be of change for us.
So, what do you think it is within that culture that causes it? Do you think this culture was just created in a vacuum?
No, I mean it wasn't created in a vacuum, but it's a buyer seller situation. Someone sells us an idea, or they sell us, a way to live, and then we buy it. So it's our choice. We could, for example, blame the CIA for selling the Black community in America. There's a conspiracy, but it's actually proven fact that the CIA was actually injecting drugs into the Black community and there were black people, like for example Rick Ross, who was making billions of dollars selling all those drugs to the black community. Now, who's at fault here? Both of them. The guy who actually bought the drugs to sell the drugs to the black community, poisoning the neighborhood even more, and then also the CIA. But like we could have nipped it in the bud if we didn't buy it at all. So you know, this issue of how we came this way with our culture, our I guess our bad neighborhoods and all that stuff, we bought that. We paid for all that stuff.
You paid for it. But
Yeah.
so why were people getting into drugs? Why do people generally get into drugs? Do you think?
Okay, we get into drugs because we bought the idea that we need to escape, and this is the way to escape, and this feels good, and we could get out of it, and all kinds of, you know, excuses we make about doing drugs when really you had a choice. No one, like, not too many people got forced into sticking up heroin in their veins. They bought into some idea that some friend told them, hey, this is going to help you.
Okay, yeah, I get it. The personal choice thing, I agree. But like, to deny the fact that there's environments which sort of, I guess, perpetuate those sort of behaviors is a bit disingenuous.
Well, okay. Well, let me just put it this way. I believe we should have control over our environment. We should teach, I guess, underprivileged people, or however way you want to put them, black people, minorities, we should teach them that they should have control over their environment.
And how would you teach them?
Say it again?
What would you be? How would you teach them? What would be a thing to teach? Like, what maybe institution might need the funding to teach?
No. The home. The home. So you teach the parents to teach the kids.
So how are you teaching the parents?
Well, the way you teach the parents, you do it through church. You can actually go to the neighborhood, actually do it online, like how we're doing it right now. Things don't have to be institutionalized. It doesn't.
But they are. We are living in a society with so much institutions. You can't just divorce it from that. Otherwise, we just live in chaos, right?
Wait, so the institution has to teach you how to pull up your pants, teach you how to, you know, buy food, all these different things. The institution has to do that for you.
In this society, yeah. Like, it's not that it has to teach you those specific things, but they need to teach you. And it does teach you. If I live not within a society, right, I wouldn't have any of that.
Well, okay. See, I believe the institution or the government is only there when we need it, not because we need it, but when we need it. So,
okay, do you think education is a need?
Well, education is a need. I don't believe that the government is actually the god of education.
I'm not even saying the government, but the government is the god in this scenario.
And that's why I'm against communism, because it gives too much power and authority.
Okay, that's fine. Like, I'm not even talking about communism here.
Well, that's the mindset.
I'm just saying. No, I'm saying right now, the god in education is the government.
Yeah, and that's why I disagree with. They're not the god. The family should be the god. Like, they should be the ones to determine where they're
run the education system.
Who runs the education system?
Do you think the families are the ones who should run the education system?
No, the families should be the ones who run the education system in their home, so that
okay. But I'm talking about who runs the education system.
Well, I guess the education system is run by either a private owned community, so maybe a church, or maybe, you know, a charter school owned by the close people who live in that neighborhood, or the government itself, which is shared by everybody.
No, I agree with that. I think the government should be taking care of that.
Well, I think it should be by choice. Like, the government, people who have their own local or private, you know, goals and mission for their students, or the church, or whatever group of people. It shouldn't be either or.
Okay, so therefore we agree that there's a problem within the education system.
Okay, so then you can make a choice. You could say, okay, we can repeat the failures by depending on the government, or we can actually make options where we can have private schools so that the issues that the government tend to have, we can fix that with our own, since we believe we can do better than the government, or we could improve the government. Well, how about we make our own private school where the issues that the government has, we will fix. And also you can fix all those problems in your own family by actually having homeschool.
Okay, that's great. So we've moved on to solutions for systematic racism. All right, sweet.
I guess.
I think, yeah. I think, yeah. All right, sweet. Okay, it's good that we're moving on to solutions now. Okay. Jay, would you like to jump in now?
I think he's been trying, but he can't. I don't think we can hear him.
Huh? Maybe if he goes to maybe his Wi-Fi has an issue, or if he goes
If
to
I
his
can,
settings in like
if I can, I'm just. Oh yes, that's right. I was just gonna go through some of these comments if we can while we're waiting for Jason. This is Jennifer Lafontaine. Sorry if I butchered the pronunciation. It says generational poverty is garbage. Me and my husband were born and raised in a trailer park. Poor, very poor. We never got any government food stamps, etc. We joined the military, busted our butts, we built. Our house and all of our bills are paid, including the houses and cars. I was a teacher at an inner city schools where there were essentially no white people, and I can say the education system is horrendous.
Yeah, okay, so she agrees the education system is horrendous. Okay.
Not just the education system itself, but unfortunately, the black principals and teachers. I was one of the only white teachers there, and they literally would ask Jennifer, "Why do you even care about these kids? They're not going to make it anywhere in life." I couldn't believe how they treated the kids, and these were black people. This is how they were looking at each other.
Yeah, I think it goes to show, like, at least in terms of funding, like how bad you can get, like, principals and teachers, they're treating kids like this. They don't even care about their job and care about trying to make a change in life. That's the kind of people that are running these schools.
Do you think it's a systematic thing, or is it a culture thing? That's the question.
No, yeah, I think we've agreed that it was a system thing because we moved on to solutions.
Well, no, I wouldn't say it's a system. That's the thing.
Well, you moved on to a solution, right?
Well, no, okay. I see. That's the thing. We already have these solutions. So we already have charter schools. We have private schools. We have church schools, which are private schools. We have homeschooling. So
they're not solutions though, because they're not doing it right now. They're still seeing the inequality within the schools in those communities.
No, actually, see, we are doing it, and that's the thing. We keep talking about these phantom like problems when really we have the solutions. It's just that we're not taking it. That's the problem. We're not taking the solutions up here.
Yeah, that means that there's a problem within the system.
No, the problem is the system in our brains. We're actually not taking the solutions that's there, and then we keep getting mad about how come there's no solution. There's solutions.
No, there are solutions, but you haven't even got rid of the factor of the differences in funding between the schools, which is the major problem.
Well, okay.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I would have to look at exactly which counties you're actually comparing.
All of them. Okay, like I'll find you a link. Okay, I'll find you a link.
Because it's complicated. It's like sometimes people actually they have a lot of thought into why they, some schools get funding and others don't. Some schools are like very competitive, and they make the choice on getting funding for their school because they have more pride, and it has nothing to do with race. It just sometimes has everything to do with, like, I guess, pride in your school. Like like initiative.
Yeah. Well, I have to
Phil,
disagree on that. But I'll find you a thing.
Phil Taulipa says MAGA.
Oh wait, no, sorry. Before we move on, there was a first point she said in that where she gave anecdotal sort of evidence about her like rising up, which is great. I think it's awesome. But I've got a thing that about like economic mobility due to race, right? So, like that's great what she says, but that's not true for the majority, and that's brought out by stats. So. 66% of blacks raised in the second quintile surpassed their parents in income, compared with 89% of whites. Okay, so on average,
Why do you think that is?
not like that's because of a whole bunch of reasons. Like as Jay said, like education, generational wealth, and all those sorts of things. And then only 23% of blacks raised in middle surpassed their parents' family wealth, compared with over 56% of whites. So it's just not true in terms of mobility by race. It's not brought out by the stats.
Mobility by race. Well, okay. Here's one thing, for example, like Democrats here in the United States, they have some reason they're against school choice, which means that if you live in a certain county or a certain area, you could go have your student, register in a whole nother school, and that's not in your county. They don't believe in that for some reason. They feel like you should go to the school that is, I guess, red line for you. Now, I didn't understand why they would want that.
Why does the school being redlined have an effect?
Why does it have an effect?
Yeah.
Well, wait, I'm sorry. Let me back up. What do you mean by that question? Why does what have an effect?
Why does it have an effect on their education? The fact that they were redlined.
Well, okay. I guess we could say that it's having an effect because people who are, I guess, of that bad cultures seem to only stick in that area. So you have an apartment area complex.
Why would they stick to that area?
Well, they would stick to that area because they feel more comfortable with each other there. And then others just don't want to leave that area.
But being out, so you're saying that they actually choose to stay in a red-lined area where it's way poorer and way worse for them.
Well, yeah, some choose. Others, some choose because that's all they could afford. Because
yes, exactly. It's not that they choose; that's all they can afford. That's not a choice.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. Like, if you are,
that's environment.
No, okay, sure, that's environment. But then that would apply to even white people who don't have who just don't have the money to move anywhere else.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, totally agree. But the fact is that in these communities, it's predominantly black.
Yeah, so that's not necessarily a race thing. That's a culture thing. If black people,
I know culture thing. No, it's not. So are these white people in the same culture as the black people now, or are you just saying culture is poor versus rich?
Well, yeah. So it's a black culture where we tend to take jobs that don't pay us well. We don't take jobs.
Why are you getting? Why? Why do you think that is? You don't think that's an education problem?
Well, no.
Don't you think people want to get paid more? That's just natural. If I can get paid more doing whatever, I would choose to get paid more. I'm not choosing shitty jobs.
Yeah, no. So people are choosing. Like,
sorry, am I allowed to swear on this?
Hold on. Let's calm down.
Yeah, let's.
Yeah, so if you go to at least the neighborhood I've been to or I grew up in, it's common for you to talk to a random black kid and ask him, what do you want to be when you grow up? He will say, I want to be a rapper. He would say, I want to be a basketball player. Or very few would say, I want to be a doctor or something like that. If they do say that, then they're not that serious. But for the most part, if you talk to like an Indian guy or something like that, It's like they all want to be some kind of pharmaceutical.
Can anyone hear me?
Okay,
Yeah,
now
yeah,
Yes, we can hear you now.
yeah, like most of them want to be some pharmaceutical scientist, or like if you talk to some Nigerian, like I said, he wants to be a doctor. So then you find in their culture, they all seem to be like rich and like traveling the world, because by culture they actually choose these careers. So it's common for us as a black people and of African American people to choose two things to talk, like be a rapper or be a basketball player. It's common.
Yeah, okay. So why is that culture there? Do you
Well-
think it's inherent within the black community?
Well, it's not inherent within our skin, of course, but it's inherent within, I guess, this culture of I guess, like peer pressure. We have like peer pressured ourselves into thinking this way and herd it. Like we have this herd mentality that we should be breaking. We don't have to think this way. We should all, like, for example, there's this mindset that says, look, if you talk like educated, you speak articulate, then you're trying to be like a white guy. So some people who have good brains, really good brains, they try to like dumb down their language to sound black, or they try to do what they think is black, like sag their pants, or just act like a fool to be down with the black community. When really, no, that's not what it means to be black. To be black is just be human and make your choices that you think is right.
Yeah, I totally agree. But yeah, because I don't think culture is was created in a vacuum. I think it has to do with the fact of oppression over the past generations. Like that has contributed to that.
That's possible.
To that culture being melted.
That's possible. We could always blame slavery, but when we have examples of, for example, we have examples like Frederick Douglass, or Booker T. Washington, or Martin Luther King, or we have Black Wall.
Marcus Garvey.
Yeah, Marcus Garvey. Are these guys, if you read their writings, it seemed like slavery did not make them weaker. It made them stronger. It made their intellect so, like pristine and sharp. So slavery does not have to be an excuse for people to be dumber or less resourceful. No, you could use that as an excuse for you to be stronger in mind. But we choose the other.
No, yeah, I agree, but these people are exceptional.
Exceptional.
They beat the odds.
No. See, they're not exceptional because we have the same kind of brain. We have the same. It's not like they're superhuman or there's something about them that just make them think that naturally like amazing. We have the same brain. I could be as Frederick Douglass if I want.
We don't have the same brain. Like maybe biologically, but there are people who are smarter than other people. That's just
okay. But as far as generally speaking, like he's not greater than all black people because he's like made up of some kind of different makeup. Like he's human like I am.
No, yeah, we're all human. But to say that there aren't exceptional people in this world, like it seems a bit off. And these people you're saying are exceptional.
Well, yeah, I'm saying okay, they're exceptional.
And they are exceptional by stats. They beat the odds.
Okay.
But can I just ask something real quick? Do you think that these people were exceptional, these black people, because of a certain culture they embraced, or did there would have been a stereotype of black people back then, which they could have conformed to? But is it the fact that these black people like Marcus Garvey and Martin Luther King and so on embraced a different way of thinking? Do you know what I mean? And hence why they were able to succeed. You know what I mean? And I think that they were Christians as well.
Yeah, no, I do agree. They had to have gone against the grain, right? that what makes them exceptional.
So I think it actually fits the narrative of what Justin is saying. It's culture, influencing the culture, and pushing a more positive culture when
Yeah,
it
no,
comes to obviously African Americans and so on.
I agree, but I think that I agree, but I don't. You can't just say fix the culture because everything within the environment of past and
Hello.
present has affected that culture. It's built up that culture.
But there's someone else's culture that is
Hello,
affected.
hello, hello.
Hey,
Yeah, we can hear
there's no-
Jason. Hey, Jason, what's
Yes.
up,
Actually,
bro?
you want to jump
Hallelujah.
in on
Yeah.
this? I'll let you
No,
talk.
You guys go ahead. I'm just stoked to get back in here. Yeah, keep going.
Well,
Okay.
I was going to say that when we're saying, for example, white supremacy, let's assume that that's true, right?
I don't need to, but like it could, at least for me, systematic racism can exist without white supremacy.
Okay, sure. Okay, so but there's many people, Black Lives Matter folk, that believe in white supremacy. If white supremacy is a possibility that this culture, this white culture, could dominate and control other cultures, then we should have enough faith in ourselves that our culture can actually overcome like theirs and become supreme. It's possible
Overcome,
that we can actually,
overcome criminal injustice.
I'm sorry?
Overcome the criminal justice aspect of it. Like, is
Well,
that what you're
sure.
referring to as well?
Well, not just criminal injustice. We just overcome our own criminality. We need to stop that, period. Like, because then we wouldn't even have to fix criminal justice if there's no black crime.
Okay. Well, let's unpack that. So when there was an investigation into the Ferguson Police Department, there was between 2012 and 2014, Black people in Ferguson accounted for 85% of vehicle stops, 90% of citations, and 93% of arrests, despite comprising only 67% of the population. Blacks were more than twice as likely as whites to be searched after traffic stops, even after controlling for related variables, though they proved to be 26% less likely to be in possession of illegal drugs or weapons. How does that play into your music and dress sense narrative?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get this whole 20% less than. Where'd you get that stat from?
That the source is.
Because I don't know how they actually could tell that black
This was an actual investigation into the Ferguson Police Department.
Wait,
Justice.
26% less likely to have drugs than white people.
Correct. In possession of illegal drugs or weapons.
Okay, well, I highly doubt that. And the reason why is because when it comes to this,
I'll send you that source right now.
Yeah, because when it comes to
this was actually done by data analysts.
Yeah, sure. When it comes to our culture, we teach people that black people are thugs. We call ourselves thug.
Mm-hmm.
There's like little thug this or little John that. I mean, we have thug in our names often. So one, we tell people, hey, we're bad people, and then two, we do commit more crime. I mean, here in the United States, we like the 13% of the population, which is black, we commit like 50% of the crime. So that means we're gonna get like people gonna suspect.
What percentage did you just say?
Here in the United States, we represent 13% of the population, but we commit 50% of the crime. So,
and then you don't think that has any bearing on the policing, like the types of like the policing approaches to different communities?
Let me put it this way. Actually, we represent 50% of the homicides. So
I was going to say that.
Yeah, all the killings and stuff. At that point, it's not about whether we suspect someone to have killed someone. It's actually they already done it, and black people can commit most of these homicides.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into something simpler then. Between 2011 and 2013, blacks also received 95% of jaywalking tickets and 94% of tickets of failure to comply. Do you think that has any like if you what was the percentage you said 13% of the population and getting 95% of jaywalking tickets? Like, do you think
Well,
that black people jaywalk more than white people?
I would imagine. I mean, because at least growing up in the urban neighborhood, um,
Hmm.
so for example, New York, we are
Hmm.
accustomed to jaywalking there. Um, and
Black
when I
people,
came,
or who are you
well,
saying when you
everybody,
say we?
well, okay, I would say the majority of Black people live in urban neighborhoods
Hmm.
or cities. So in these cities, you just jaywalk, right? Um,
Hmm.
so when you leave that environment and you just go to like, let's say here in California, there's some areas where you can't jaywalk and they take it serious.
Yep.
I don't take it serious. I mean, it's to the point where it really confuses me that a cop would actually threaten that he would find me, and some cop actually did. So I
So
think,
you're part of the 95%.
well, yeah, I didn't get fined yet, but I could have been,
Yeah.
because yeah, like the white people in that neighborhood, they literally they sit there and wait for the light to turn. And I'm like,
Hmm.
what are you guys doing? Like, there's no cars. And I would just
Hmm.
walk. And I would just sit there thinking, like, what's stopping them? They actually fear something. And like, I understand, okay, these white people, they generally keep the rules here for some reason. And
Hmm.
so the chances of black people breaking those rules and then also being rebellious is a lot higher because we're from urban areas. And
Yep.
also, we don't respect the law. We really don't like cops.
Do you think there's a warranted reason for it at all?
Well, there are some, yeah, I would say there's some warrant reasons. And then other times it's overblown. And the thing that I'm fighting is the overblown part where
Hmm.
we're just, we use the bad apples
What are the credible reasons to you?
okay, so the credible reasons are like there's cases where cops actually implant drugs in people's cars when they're searching for it, and it's caught on
Absolutely.
camera, and
Absolutely.
that's something I fear. I mean, they could do that with anyone, but it's easy. It's actually more believable to actually assume that a black guy was selling drugs or he had guns or something like that, because we tell people that we do drugs and we sell, and then we sell contraband and have guns and stuff. So
Mhm.
when they accuse us of these things, it's like, oh man, that's not fair. My own people is painting me like I'm a drug dealer and I'm a murderer.
Yep.
And these cops, all I have to do is find that right one, that bad cop, that one bad cop who's looking to just get his quota, and just say, look, this black guy, he was obviously, slinging drugs. So yeah, let's lock this guy up. I mean, he's going to give me a raise if I
Mm.
lock this guy up. So yeah,
Yeah, well, I've also got studies on that as well. It says while white and black Americans admit to using and selling illicit drugs at similar rates, black Americans are vastly more likely to go to prison for a drug offense. And in 2002, black Americans were incarcerated for drug offenses at 10 times the rate of white Americans. But if you want to actually go back to what we are just talking about before, it says black, like when you actually get into the actual criminal justice system, black people facing similar low-level charges as white people were 68% less likely to see those charges dismissed in court. More than 90% of their arrest warrants stemming from to pay or failure to appear were issued for black people.
okay.
So the question is not so much does systemic racism like exist. It's like what is its purpose?
What's the purpose of this racism that
Yeah.
exists?
What
Or,
is the purpose of the systemic racism?
okay, what? Okay, so let me put it this way. So are we assuming that the judges that are locking these people up, they are looking at the black man and saying, you know what, you deserve more, while the white people, we give them mercy?
Statistically speaking, that's what it's showing.
Um,
By the way, I'd just like to jump in. They've also controlled for the stats of previous history and all that, and the type of crime. That's all been controlled for, but there's still a disparity.
It says blacks are 3.7 times as likely to be arrested for a marijuana offense as whites, despite similar usage. 97% of large population countries have racial biases in their drug offense incarceration. So, what are your thoughts on police militarization?
I don't know exactly. I would have to think on which case are we thinking about? Are we talking about like New York or something? We have to figure out a city or a place because some places need more policing.
Oh yeah, more policing, but I'm talking about like actual militarization, like in terms of the equipment, in terms of like the heavy-handed approach. That like the studies are showing that you'll have more SWAT teams in black areas and black and South American areas.
Well, I mean, okay, so yeah, I believe that.
Like they're disproportionately like deployed in African American communities, even when accounting for crime rates.
Yeah, and I think part of that is because we commit a lot of these drug crimes and gang violence, and I mean, can you think of a white?
So yeah, also even just like breaking down like you keep referring back to drugs and like how it's glorified in music. How do black people get drugs into the country?
Yeah, I said that. Well, I mean, before you came in, or while you were gone, I talked about how the CIA actually implanted drugs into, I guess, like for example, California through the kind of Rick Ross.
I'm all over that. I'm all over that. Dark Alliance, Gary Webb. Let's get into that one. I'd love to talk about that.
So I explained that the fault is on both people. You can't. I mean, one person was buying it and the other person was selling it. So you can't just act like a child, like you didn't know what you were doing.
You know who was buying, who specifically was buying, and who specifically was selling in California?
Yeah, well, his name was Rick Ross. He made like at that time like over billions of dollars, like buying, millions, like pretty much like loads of drugs and stuff. And actually, he was on the train with him. And from the CIA, from the CIA.
And where did the CIA get it?
Well, I guess they got it from like Colombia and all these.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? God damn it. Hello?
I think he's just dropped out. You're fine, Jay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
You got me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, Jay.
No,
yeah,
it's
sorry.
just
I think
the thing I heard was Colombia.
No, he's
Colombia.
just dropped out. He's dropped out. Justin's dropped out.
Oh, he's dropped out. Okay.
Yeah, I think his computer must be frozen or something. But yeah, interesting conversation, guys. Love it. Love talking about these types of things.
Yeah, well, it wasn't so much Colombia. It was actually Nicaragua. Basically, the U.S. was funding a regime change war in Nicaragua at the time, and they were also trafficking cocaine from Nicaragua. Oh, yeah, it was trafficking cocaine from Nicaragua to Rick Ross, who was distributing it through California, and that was like that was responsible for the big kind of explosion in the crack epidemic there.
Because of goddamn capitalism. Sorry, I shouldn't have used it. I shouldn't have blasphemed.
Let's get some of these comments. Natasha Malvu says you're wrong, Ivan.
Okay, thanks. Can I know why?
She says you're wrong. And good comment, Natasha. Here's Jennifer again. She goes, I taught here at a charter school too. It was all smoking mirrors. They got all the money in the world without fathers in the home and without the Bible. You can none of this.
Man, let's leave the Bible out of it.
But yeah, I do agree with the fathers bit. I mean, I think you're right. I think a good family structure is good. Like it helps
100%.
a lot. Again, yeah.
What is the family structure according to the communists? What would be the ideal? Like, how does it work? I'm asking.
No,
You
no,
asking,
I'm not.
am I the communist or?
No, I'm the
No,
communist.
Ivan's a self-proclaimed communist.
Oh, wicked.
No, I'm not. I'm not a family man, but I know the stats bear out that in a single parent household, they're way less. They're way more likely to do like worse in life. So yeah.
Yeah, the stats show that, but you always have the anomaly where the one.
Well, let's
No,
let me chime in on that. Like we
Yeah.
were so you guys reckon that like male, like the family structure should be male and female, right?
No, I don't agree with that.
Oh, not you, but I was also Justin and George. So
Well,
would you say
well,
a child would
let
have
me
a
let me.
better upbringing? Would you say a child would have a better upbringing if it had an abusive father? You would rather like an abusive relationship over a same-sex couple relationship where they're perfectly happy and perfectly loving and supportive. Would you prefer like the domestic violence relationship over the healthy relationship?
Well, and I think he's back to the stream. Yeah, go to the stream. But yeah, answering that question, you said the family structure. Well, we have to understand how is a family created.
Mm-hmm.
And if we see how families are created, then we can base it. That's where we base a family off. You know what I mean? That's we see that in nature. You know what I mean? Even amongst the
So
animals and things like
biologically,
that.
yeah, we'll get it, birds and bees and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But my
yeah.
question is, what would be a healthier relationship? Women who are completely loving, bringing up a child, or a male and a female who are in an abusive relationship.
I think both is bad for the child.
Okay, fair.
And I'm not trying
Oh,
to
yeah.
look another day. Another day, because naturally speaking, two women can't have a family. You know what I mean? So it's
Two women can't have a family.
not well. Obviously, maybe now with the technology. But,
So a single mother, a single mother would be better than two women.
well, it's both. Both is like would be unideal.
They're both unideal. Okay, but
Yeah,
we do
There's
understand that like every family is different, and yeah,
I agree. And I think we got to base it back down to the like what Justin was saying earlier. What
Mhm.
the principles that the child learns must come from the family structure. And obviously myself and I'm not here to judge the gays. The gays have their choice, and they can make these choices, and things like that.
Very progressive of you.
Can I just jump in with a study though? Like a study published in 2016 using data from the US National Survey of Children's Health for 2011-2012 compared outcomes for children aged 6 to 17 years old in 95 female same-sex partnered families. The study found no difference in outcomes for children raised by lesbian parents compared to heterosexual parents in a range of outcomes: health, emotional, and coping behaviors and learning behaviors.
Yeah. There you go. But Justin, sorry, I really wanted to get back on that on what you were saying, just with regards to the CIA Nicaragua contras. Would you acknowledge that was specifically targeted towards the black community, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so would that be an example of systemic racism, that the CIA is on one hand destabilizing a country for regime change, which to me is like an extension of white supremacy in itself, to actually trafficking cocaine to as specifically black communities, and then at the same time pushing a war on drugs, which disproportionately targets black people. Does that not set up a cooking pot of system?
Yeah, I can admit to that. If I saw that happening today, then yeah. But then,
It's
at
not
the,
happening. You say it's not happening today.
not that I see.
Did you like who actually saw it when it was happening?
Well, Rick Ross, and I guess, well, he didn't see it. He didn't actually see it when it was happening.
No, it was Gary Webb. It was Gary Webb who was the one who actually. It was a journalist. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he was the one who actually let Rick Ross know that the person that he was actually getting the drugs from was a CIA agent.
Yeah.
And then do you know what happened to Gary Webb?
No, did he die?
He was shot twice in the back of the head, and it was ruled as suicide.
Yeah. So to that, I would say, one thing, we as a people, we shouldn't actually we shouldn't be mad only when it's a white person or the system doing it. We shouldn't have been buying the drugs in the first place.
Well, if you've got that much poverty, and then someone says you're going to be making millions in a day, what's the choice?
No, there is a choice. Like, I mean, if the devil gives you a deal, then you have the power to say no.
If you're starving for days, well, how do you think you're going to be treating like the pursuit of food?
No, you can look at all these.
You just got to find it in faith.
I have never seen someone in the ghetto in any American city where someone died of starvation. They were pretty.
We got some interesting stats here.
I'm talking about an analogy, but go on.
We got that. If we can hit back to that family structure, because I think that's important.
It's a bit diversified from the topic, but it's okay.
Well, no, but we were talking about that before. Just because these things have come up. Jordan Murphy, what's up, brother? All the way up in Queensland. There's a police officer. You're doing good work out there, sir. 63% of youth suicides from fatherless homes, 5 times the average. 80% of rapists with anger problems come from fatherless homes, 14 times the average. 71% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes, 9 times the average. So, having a father, and we agree, having it can't be just any type of father. Obviously any man can get someone pregnant. A father is someone who comes and nurtures and takes care of his business. You know what I mean? So
what are the things that a father should teach the child? Like what is the role of the male to teach the child?
How to take orders, how to be disciplined, how to control his emotions.
Yep. And a woman can't do that.
Woman cannot do it perfectly as the man.
Why?
Because she's more geared towards nurture and being sensitive and giving way to emotions that would be helpful for taking care of her baby. But if she's taking care of a man, she can't. It's not natural for her to be strong-willed and It's
not natural for a woman to be strong-willed.
Well, composed in a way that would actually treat the man as the man should be treated.
This is a crazy generalization, bro. I'll keep going.
Well, it's a generalization because this is how women are built. They're not made to actually act like a man. They're made to act like women. So that's why you can't it's not easy to build. It's not easy to build a man out of a woman.
Okay.
So are you saying they don't have the same sort of if a good woman wouldn't be able to instill good values?
They are.
The person?
No, it's just there's no absolutes when I'm speaking, but there's generalities because generally speaking, they're more inclined to act like women, to be softer and more gentle in nature, to not be extremely aggressive. No, they're easier to break emotionally.
When you
yeah.
say nature, what are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about how their brains are wired. They're wired to, let's say, cry sooner than a man. They're more empathetic. They care more. They can easily be manipulated because of those emotions. It's just one of those things.
So, but when you say like they're wired, when you say women are wired like that, like you wired like that biologically, or do you think that it could, or do you mean wired social conditioning wise? Because that's what I believe. I think it's completely social conditioning.
No, it's biological.
I think that women have both masculine and feminine aspects, and I think that men have both masculine and feminine aspects, and they're not, and there's nothing wrong with that on either side.
No, biologically. So of course their hormones, they have different hormones. That's why when someone is trying to be a transgender, they have to take a bunch of hormones. There's no reason to take hormones if you're biologically the same.
Yeah, but it's not, they're not doing that on a basis of like attitude, or feel like characteristics, or they're doing that for physical reasons. But what you're talking about is that women have like a certain set of like characteristics, and men have a certain list of characteristics. Most of those characteristics that you've just stated are all coming through social conditioning, not so much biologically. I know plenty of tough women. I know plenty of soft men as well. Not the world's too big for everyone to completely adhere to any one kind of status quo or social norm.
Well, yeah, but your hormones like affect your emotions, right?
Of course.
Okay, so then if you have estrogen, like high estrogen, you're gonna your emotions gonna act that way. So that's
and
why
people are born with higher estrogen and testosterone. That varies from person to person. So if you're going to break things down to nature, you got to break it down like in how that kind of balance in each and every person.
But we both can agree that they're not equal. We don't have equal estrogen and equal testosterone.
Exactly.
So,
some people have more estrogen, some have more testosterone.
I mean, between genders.
So if that's the variables that you're basing it upon, then you're basically defeating your own argument in saying that.
No. I'm saying, okay, between male and female, they don't have equal estrogen and equal testosterone. Men have more testosterone and women have more estrogen. So their emotions and
not necessarily. People are born with some. There are some men who are born with more estrogen, and there's some women who are born with more testosterone.
Okay, why did you use the word some?
Some. I'm saying it differs from every single person.
See, notice you use the word some because it's not most.
Well, what are you basing it on? Like we need a kind of.
I'm basing it on the statistics of all the men and women I've met throughout my life, which is thousands. Men act like men, like how we stereotypically see them. They have emotions and feelings based on their hormones, and women have feelings natural because of their hormones, their estrogen hormones. So that's why when they get pregnant, they act different from how men would be on a regular basis because their body is made different.
Yeah.
But
all right, so we're hitting the 2-hour mark, so I think we might finish it up with some final statements from each and every one of you before we finish up. What do you think, guys?
well,
I can keep going, but it's up to you guys.
I can't keep going, but I appreciate the discussion. It was good to have discussion with people who I disagree with, but yet, I mean, you guys don't like fall into ad hominems and immature discussion.
No, I'm good. Yeah, this was good and civil. I liked it. It was all right.
Yeah, more than happy to do it again. But basically I'm just going to run through the statistics that weren't really addressed and whatnot, that weren't really rebutted. So So black people accounted for 85% of vehicle stops, 90% of citations, 93% of arrests, despite comprising 67% of the population. Blacks were more than twice as likely as whites to be searched for after traffic stops and even after controlling for related variables. Blacks also received 95% of jaywalking tickets and 94% of tickets of failure to comply. So when you get into the criminal justice system, black people facing similar lower level charges to white people were 68% less likely to have those charges in court dismissed. And police militarization does not lead to a decrease in crimes committed or officer injuries that may actually increase both. So that's kind of where the crux of that I was getting at. In terms of actual racism, though, like I believe that everyone. I do agree with you that everyone is racist. I'm personally racist towards Americans. I think that Americans are the dumbest people on the planet. I think that you're the campaigns between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I think that they're a freak show. I think that it's the same two-party system. Like it's a well orchestrated two-party system from Australia to the US to the UK. I think that US is an empire, and like people need to stop looking at it as so much as a country, but as an empire that has literally overthrown every countries on every continent. That America has even overthrown our own government here in Australia, and that to me is what I define as white supremacy, and that is what I define as systemic racism. And if you'd like to get into that more, I'd love to have this discussion again.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Hey, Justin, we appreciate you. Make sure for those, check out his YouTube channel, Adventist
Hermes.
Adventist Hermes. Good content out there. This man is a Trump supporter, MAGA 2020. Let's make Australia great again too. We got an Australian version of MAGA.
Wait.
Like Pauline Hanson. Pauline Hanson. That's what we're voting for here.
We're ending this podcast, but we will definitely hopefully in the future.
Hold up. I just want to ask you, if you don't mind, Justin, can I ask you 3 questions before you leave?
Okay.
All right. So I've watched like a few of your videos, and I've seen that you're very vocal about like Islam. Like, what are your thoughts on Donald Trump being complicit with Saudi Arabia in the genocide of the Yemeni people?
I don't know too much about that, so I can't give my opinion on it.
Okay. What are your thoughts on Donald Trump refusing to apologize for the Central 5 Park case to this day?
Well, I mean, if he really believes that they committed the crime, then I don't see why he should apologize.
Well, it's been proven in court, and like everyone knows that the Central Park 5 they were wrongfully convicted, and to this day he refuses to apologize for it.
Well, okay. Well, that's him. I mean, he believes they did it, and if I believe someone did something, then I wouldn't apologize for my belief.
Well, he knows that they didn't do it now. It's like everyone knows that they didn't do it.
I don't know that. Like, that's the thing. You can't just go into his brain and say what he does and doesn't know, unless you're there inside his brain. You're just assuming what he believes.
As a president, this is something like he took out of a full-page ad in the New York Times to call for the death penalty when he didn't have all the facts. So obviously he was wrong. It was five innocent kids. Well, since then it's been proven that like they were like, after spending decades in jail, they got out of jail, and like Donald Trump knows he has acknowledged himself that they were innocent, but to this day he refuses to apologize for it.
Yeah, and I mean I totally disagree with Donald Trump for I guess not acknowledging that. But if he really believes that they did
he has acknowledged it. He's acknowledged it, but he has no remorse for it.
Wait, he acknowledged what?
He acknowledged that they were actually wrongfully convicted.
No, you made that up right there.
I made that up?
Yeah, because he didn't acknowledge that.
Okay. Well.
But yeah, if he believes that they committed the crime, then he shouldn't just apologize for his belief. But I disagree with him that they are guilty, and I think it's quite obvious that they were innocent. Um, But yeah, I mean, those are just a couple of things I disagree with Trump on, and yeah, but I don't believe in forced apology.
Okay, well, not forced apology, but in your position, if you know an injustice has occurred, something that you were on the front line calling for the death penalty of, and you're the
That's right.
president.
I mean, that makes sense. If I believe someone did the crime, like especially if someone, like I mean, if you're not in the interrogation room, and you get like a videotape of their confession, you don't know that they were manipulated to make a confession and all that stuff, and then you also have their parents kind of agreeing to it a little bit. Of course, you're led to believe that because that's, I mean, anyone who makes a confession, we kind of take their word for it.
Or the way in which they got the conviction for the Central Park Five, would that be an example of systemic racism? The way
No,
the interrogation method, the profiling, the
no,
fact that they served decades when they were innocent.
no. I mean, one thing I've seen other like cases of like murder cases where they really try to get an innocent guy, convicted, and yeah, they manipulated this guy, and the guy was white.
Okay, so you're saying it's more so corruption than racial racial.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Well, yeah, I can agree with you on that. But I can agree with you that it happens across the board. But but yeah, as far as this specifically being racial profiling, I believe that plays a part. But yeah, man, pleasure talking to you.
Cool, man. It was good talking to you guys.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks, Justin.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
mate.
Thank you very much for the discussion. I appreciate it.
All right, Ivan. All right, see ya.
Peace.
See you, mate. Thanks, guys. Once again, for those tuning in, appreciate you. Next week we'll be having Dr. Bernie Power on again. We'll be doing a PowerPoint presentation on who is Muhammad. So, make sure you tune in for that. But till next time, peace.